up everyone, it's Jane. So about 3 weeks ago I told you I'd be doing the step-by-step tutorial for this coffee cup within the next few days. Yes, my time management skills are a little lacking at the moment, but finally I am here. This is where I got my inspiration. Mrs. Arnold's art room. She does some marvellous drawings and I like them because they're very clean and graphic, and while in essence you could say they're simple, once you build up the simple shapes you can make something quite complicated, but you have to start somewhere, and I am a big believer in practicing with the really simple designs. And indeed, I've actually improved the way that I draw the coffee cup from when I did that Saturday sketch 3 weeks ago. Would you believe, today when I opened Silhouette Studio there was an update waiting, and so I'm now on 4.3 and things have changed just a little. I'll explain as we go along. I am using the basic version here, so anyone with the free version of the Silhouette software will be able to do this tutorial, and everything that I show you is available in the basic software, so it's not going to be only if you have the paid for upgrades. So let's follow Mrs. Arnold's instructions and start off with a skinny rectangle. I'm going to keep my line thickness at 0. In fact, we'll make sure we change it up here. We'll make sure that it's on red, and I'll keep the fill colour, or shall I give it a colour so that you can see it? Yeah, I suppose we could give it a colour. Let's go for a pale green. There we go. Now here's one of the changes. You can see here across the top, this is recently used. This means colours that I've been messing around with this morning or when I last opened the program. One thing that's changed is we've no longer got a bigger square over here that we used to use for picking our transparent colour. Instead, that's this little diamond shape at the beginning of the palette, which threw me for a while because I wondered where it was, and it's exactly the same over on the line style. It's a little diamond at the beginning of the palette, and that's what will set your line colour at transparent. We can also save palettes, so if you've got a particular colour scheme that you want to use, you'll be able to put it into Silhouette Studio, and rather than having colours down the side of your page, which is something that I've done before, we'll now actually be able to have a palette that you can put here and click on. So let me know if you'd like a tutorial on that in the comments, because I can do that in the next week or so. Honest, I'll try. And we can have a look at how useful that is. I'm hoping it's going to be really useful. I'm looking forward to trying that. Anyway, that was a little distraction. So let's draw our skinny rectangle, and I'll go for 2 squares, small squares. I should explain that I am in inches again, of course, with 8 divisions. So that's 2.5 inches wide. In fact, that's probably too big. So shall we make it smaller and move it down? There we go. And that's that. Next we need a trapezoid. Now we can cheat and hold our Alt key and drag. We could also have used our duplicate button, and I'll just get rid of that. But either way, let's make our next shape, and let's give it a slightly different colour so that we can see the different parts. And double click to open our point editing, because we need to make it bend in, don't we? So if we go like so and go in 1 square there and then in 2 squares there, yeah, that's quite nice. So that's our trapezoid top. probably should be a little taller perhaps, do you think? Oh no, that looks a bit odd, so let's leave it at that for now. Next, I'm going to draw a new rectangle for the base, and let's choose another greeny colour, and I want to start one in as before and across, and let's make it quite tall. Let's go to about there, and once again I'm going to double click, and I'm going to make, as Mrs. Arnold suggests, the rounded bottom, and we want it on this line. And remember, we have to click on the point to find which one makes that active, and it's this one on the left. So as soon as that red line is active and thicker than the others, we know that's the one we want. And make curve. And I'm keeping snap to grid on because I can grab the handles and it will snap nice and easily, and I can just take up my control handle, and I think we'll do something like that. We want a bit of a curve, don't we? Let's make it equal on this side. There we go. Actually, I think 2 might be better. I can always alter it later. There we go. And then, I should have left it on, we need to come in one to have our tapered edge. In one to have our tapered edge. So I've got my basic shape, and this is where I can decide, which I'm going to, that my shapes aren't quite big enough. So let's do that and send that one backward. Let's make the sleeve. Now, before with the sleeve, I actually did it with just lines. This time I'm going to do a shape, and we're going to cheat. We're going to duplicate the body. Let's give it a grey colour for now so that I can see it, and let's make it smaller, and let's decide about where we want it and make it bigger than the base of the cup, so perhaps about there, and one more down. There we go. I think that would be perfect. Double click so that we can make it curved at the top. So let's turn snap to grid off for this, and we want to make a curve and bring it down, and in one, make a curve, bring it down, and in one. In fact, I might make it 2. I think it needs a bit more. I'm going to make it overlap just slightly the base of the cup, like so. Now I can get my curve in, and you can do it with one side if you don't want to keep altering both. You just keep going until you think it looks right, and I think that might do. And the final touch is an oval, and I'm going to use the fill colour of black. I'm not going to want this cutting though, so let's use this transparent line, and let's draw a little oval for the hole. It's usually big enough that I can get a straw in, which is handy, and let's centre it. There we go. That's our quick centre. Here we've got all the basic elements of our coffee cup, and this is where I would save it. Yes, they're all shapes that don't take that long to draw, but why keep doing them if you don't need to? This file I've called Coffee Cups version 1, and so I'm going to just save it, and then I'm going to do File, Save As, Save to Hard Drive, And I'm using OneDrive cloud storage now to keep everything up to date, and I'm going to call this Coffee Cups version 2, so that any edits I make from now on won't interfere with my original shapes. Now before, of course, you've always seen me grabbing a copy and leaving it off to the side, and that does work, but sometimes you forget to do that, and you can just keep your files going by versions 1, 2, 3 or whatever, and that way you've always got a stage that you can go back to without having to start from scratch. Now let's dress up our first coffee cup with some different colours. We could choose the same ones as Mrs. Arnold has actually. Let's start with that. And the eyedropper is this really tiny symbol over on the right here now. It's really quite small. You can see we get the dropper, so I'll pick the green and let's change that, and then we can click recently used, and then we want the eyedropper again to change these two, so let's click and change, and let's also change the label. Our next job is we want the outlines, and for that we can select everything except the little oval in the middle, change the colour to black, and now let's choose our thickness, and I think we'll go for something like 1.75. So now we've got our basic shape and colour. We ought to do our hearts soon, but first let's make sure that we've got our cup ready. So I'm going to select everything, and I'm going to duplicate, and I'm going to group it. I know it's got itself in a bit of a mess there with one coming forward. I am this time just going to move it over to the side. The label, of course, is hanging over our outline of the whole thing and isn't quite right. So I want to make it fit the base. And to do that, I'll zoom in so you can see, I'm going to select the label and the base, open the modify panel, and we're going to use this one, divide. Now it will make more shapes than ideally we want, but it's the one that works. So we'll click divide, I'll move the modify panel, and then we can just pull away the two sides, and my label now fits within my base perfectly. I can get rid of those. But like I say, it makes more than one shape. So this is separate and this is separate. I'll put it together by doing undo. You may remember that when you resize a drawing that's done with a line width, where you've actually set a line width like we have of 1.75, you'll remember that when you resize it, the line size doesn't change with it. So we need to do one other thing as well, which is to detach the lines from the drawing so that they act like shapes. Now, before I do that, I am again going to make a copy, and you might wonder why I'm not saving a new version. I don't always when it's something that's still in the same sort of area of editing. So this is still about the shapes. So I'm going to duplicate again and move it down and off to the side. The reason I've done that is I can go back to that one, or this as it is, before I detach the lines, and I'll be able to change the line colour of the whole thing in here if I want to. But once I've detached the lines, I'd have to try and click each one individually, and further down the line that would be annoying. So my idea is, let's detach lines. So for instance, if I do that, we've now got two colours there. We've got green and black, but no line colour, because this is no longer a line. So if I click that, it's green, and if I just select the outside, it's black. And like I say, to change each individual black shape would be a lot to do. However, and you've got to click them and be accurate, so that's why I'm keeping one with the lines intact. Now, when I select everything, if I group it and we mess around with resizing, you can see that the lines resize in proportion. If I resize this one with the lines and we zoom in again, you can see the difference. The lines are far too heavy. Now, yes, of course, you can go in and change them here, but it's much easier just to keep it all resizing in proportion by detaching the lines. So if I do undo, so that I can just get back to where my original size was, because I'm lazy. Come on. Before I do the decoration in the middle, the next thing I need to address is how to print and cut this. Let's turn off the grid now, don't need it. You'll know from previous videos that I've done, when you have an outline like this and you want to print and cut it, but you don't want a white edge. Sometimes you don't want white. Sometimes you do when it's a sticker. It might be exactly what you want. But mostly we like a nice clean edge that if it has colour, the colour goes all the way to the edge and we don't have white bits. So we need to make a copy of our cup so that the black outline extends, so that we can then put our cut line just inside and have exactly this size still, and have a nice clean edge if we print and cut. So the first thing to do, it's grouped, so I'm going to duplicate it and I'm going to fill the whole thing with black. If I put the line colour on too, see we've got lots of different shapes, so we can use the well selected shapes here. Now I've got one shape with a red cut line, and if I just, well, let's make it transparent because we don't need it to be black. There we go. That's my cut line, and if I line that up, it fits exactly to the outline of my cup. So let's just move it over a moment so that we can see it. The next thing I need, of course, is the extra bit around this cut line filled with black. So of course for that we're going to use offset. Offset, I want square. So square, and let's bring it in. And I don't need a big offset at all, don't need to be wasting paper. So something like that, and I want it to be black, but I don't want it to cut, so again this little diamond shape for make the cut line transparent on the edge of that. And that now is my cut line and my offset. Now we can select those and group them, and then we can send this to the back, and we can center these together and align middle. And if we now zoom in so you can see the edge quite clearly, The cut line will be disappearing in places because it is, of course, behind our original drawing. But if we go to the send window, and I always do cut by line, so let's take black off, change it round, and let's draw in again. You can see now that I've got a really nice cut line inside my black outline, and the thickness of my lines are all equal. That's all done. So that's my basic shape, and if I resize that, it's going to be absolutely perfect. So finally, I can decorate my label in whatever way I choose. So let's do our quick heart, shall we? So we'll use our picker and pick up the red from Mrs. Arnold's. I don't want it cutting, so I'll keep it transparent. Let's pick up our draw a curved shape, and let's draw a heart. Yeah, I know, it's terrible, isn't it? Open our point editing. Let's bring it to the front. Okay, I want a black line actually on this, don't I? So black to match the outline of everything else, 1.75. And let's make it like so, and give it a little rotate. Yeah, I quite like that actually. There we go. And the next thing I'm going to do is duplicate it, fill it with black, send it backwards, and now I've got a 3D shadow. There we go. And I can group those together so that I can make sure that I center it with everything else. So align middle, and there we have our first finished coffee cup, which we can now resize to our heart's content. Except I've forgotten something, haven't I? And this is all about workflow again. If I just select all of that and decide to resize, the heart is going to be wrong because I haven't detached the lines. So we need to select our heart, click modify and detach lines, and then just group everything together again. And now if I select it and resize, excellent, that's much better. Make a note, detach the lines when you want it to resize in proportion. Our coffee cup now can be dressed up in many different ways, whatever takes your fancy. Here are a few that I had a little play with today.